Bardock dies alone, surrounded by Frieza's soldiers, fighting a war no one asked him to win. Gohan survives every war he enters, carrying weight no child should ever have to hold. One Saiyan never got to choose his legacy. The other spent years running from his. Now imagine the moment those two bloodlines finally share the same battlefield. Not Goku in the middle, not Vegeta watching from a distance. Just a grandfather and grandson who never got a single day together. That alone makes this scenario unlike anything Dragon Ball has ever shown us. But this is not a sentimental reunion story. This is a question of what actually happens when Bardock's war instinct meets Gohan's unleashed power. Because these two Saiyans are built completely differently, and that difference matters enormously. Bardock is a low-class soldier who won his entire career on aggression, battlefield reading, and survival instinct. He has no master, no formal training, no divine key refinement behind him. What he has is something Dragon Ball rarely discusses, which is raw tactical awareness in live combat. He reads enemies while they are still moving. He adjusts without needing to think, because thinking in his world meant dying before you finished the thought. Gohan is something else entirely. Gohan was trained by Piccolo, pushed by Goku, broken open by Majin Buu's resurrection, and refined by the Elder Kai's awakening. His power ceiling is arguably the highest of any Saiyan ever born. But his relationship with that power has always been his greatest flaw. Gohan does not fight to dominate. He fights to protect, and the moment that protection is secured, the hunger fades. Bardock would notice that within the first 60 seconds, he has spent his entire life watching soldiers who hesitate get killed by soldiers who do not. So the question is not whether they are powerful enough together, they absolutely are. The real question is whether these two wildly different Saiyan minds can actually synchronize under pressure. Place them against something that requires both instinct and controlled power simultaneously. Something like the Shadow Dragons, or a restored Frieza commanding a unified galactic army. Something with scale, coordination, and the ability to force both Saiyans to fight differently. Bardock does not have Gohan's refinement, but he has something Gohan lost somewhere between childhood and adulthood. He has the willingness to stay violent. Gohan enters a fight hoping it ends. Bardock enters a fight assuming it escalates. That psychological gap is the first thing the battlefield would expose. In the opening moments, Bardock moves forward before Gohan has finished reading the situation. He does not wait for full information because he was never trained to. His ki flares in short controlled bursts, covering angles, drawing reactions, testing what responds and how fast. Gohan, watching that, would understand something immediately. Bardock fights the way Goku fights when he stops holding back. With motion, pressure, and instinctual threat reading, the bloodline signature is unmistakable even across generations. But there is a brutal difference underneath that resemblance. Goku learned compassion and turned it into a fighting philosophy. Bardock never had that luxury. His compassion was buried under years of Frieza's assignments and a soldier's life that punished softness. So when Bardock and Gohan stand on the same side, the dynamic is not mentor and student. It is not even equals. It is two Saiyans who represent completely opposite responses to the same bloodline's potential. One maximized power through refinement, restraint, and emotional depth. The other maximized survival through aggression, adaptability, and refusing to stop moving. Together, that combination is genuinely dangerous in a way that neither one achieves alone. Gohan's power requires space to charge, requires emotional stakes to unlock fully, requires a specific kind of pressure. Bardock creates that space by making the enemy react to him instead of planning against Gohan. That is not a coincidence, that is a legitimate combat partnership built on complementary natures. Bardock pulls the pressure, Gohan delivers the consequence. And any enemy sophisticated enough to recognize that pattern would immediately try to separate them. Because together they close the gap that each one carries individually. Gohan's gap is activation. He needs time, emotion, and escalation to reach his ceiling. Bardock's gap is ceiling itself. His raw power has limits Gohan crossed years ago, but limits only matter if the fight reaches the level where they are exposed. Bardock's entire career was built on making sure fights never reach that level on the enemy's terms. He dictates tempo, not because he is the strongest in the room, but because he understands momentum better than almost anyone. Now give him a grandson whose power, when finally released, rewrites the scale of the entire fight. The enemy is no longer dealing with one threat they can isolate and manage. They are dealing with a Saiyan who never stops moving and a Saiyan whose ceiling they cannot calculate. That combination does not just win battles, it breaks enemy strategy before it forms. Think about the Shadow Dragon arc, where the threats were spread across multiple fronts simultaneously. Bardock alone would be outclassed by the stronger dragons. Gohan alone would struggle with the coordinated pressure of multiple enemies across separate locations. But together, Bardock handles the spread, the movement, the distraction, the battlefield reading. And Gohan reserves his energy for the moment the real threat consolidates. When Omega Shenron or something of that magnitude finally arrives, Gohan is not exhausted. He is primed, protected, and standing behind 60 seconds of Bardock, making the enemy bleed for every inch. That is the moment Gohan stops holding back. And unlike every other time in Dragon Ball history where Gohan unleashes, there is no one left to protect him while he charges. Except now there is. Bardock does not retreat when the power aura rises around Gohan. He moves closer to the enemy, putting himself directly in their path, buying every second his grandson needs. That image alone, a low-class Saiyan soldier holding the line so the most powerful Saiyan ever born can finish the fight, is everything Dragon Ball never let itself show. The tragedy of Bardock is that he died before legacy meant anything to him. The tragedy of Gohan is that he had legacy handed to him and spent years quietly resenting the weight of it. Put those two tragedies in the same fight and something unexpected happens. Bardock does not try to be Goku for Gohan. He does not comfort. He does not inspire with words. He does not deliver a speech about Saiyan pride. He just fights, completely and without hesitation, the way he always has. And that honesty, that pure, unfiltered Saiyan aggression with no ideology attached to it, is exactly what Gohan responds to. Not because it reminds him of his father, but because it does not. Bardock asks nothing from Gohan except that he finish what Bardock starts. No expectation of the great Saiyaman, no ghost of the Cell games, no pressure of being Goku's son. Just a soldier trusting the most powerful warrior beside him to end the fight. Gohan has never been given that kind of simple, unconditional trust inside a battle. And that is the hidden factor almost every fan would miss when imagining this scenario. The power question answers itself. Together they are more than enough for almost any Dragon Ball threat. The real answer lives in what this partnership does to Gohan psychologically. Bardock does not fix Gohan's complicated relationship with power, but he gives Gohan a version of combat where that complication does not have the chance to win. There is no time to hold back when Bardock is already 3 steps ahead drawing fire. There is no room for hesitation when a grandfather who never got to know you is bleeding to buy you one more second. Gohan does not rise because of a speech, or a transformation trigger, or a moment of grief. He rises because Bardock makes retreat feel more expensive than finishing the fight. That is the most Saiyan thing Dragon Ball never actually gave us. Not the power, not the fusion, not the God Key. Just 2 bloodline warriors who fight completely differently, trusting each other completely, on a battlefield that demands both of them. The fans who reduce this to a power calculation miss everything that makes it worth imagining. Because this was never about whether they were strong enough, it was about whether 2 Saiyans, separated by death, time, and an entire unshared history could find the same rhythm under pressure. And the answer, written in every fight Bardock ever survived and every ceiling Gohan ever broke through, is yes. But only because neither one of them fights like the other.